It's not to be skipped. I'm about to explain to you, confession, why I ultimately was wrong about Kevin Durant. Kevin bleepin' Durant. I'm about to explain, unfortunately, why I ultimately overestimated and in the long term overprotected Kevin bleepin' Durant. I got to tell you, Kevin Durant is the weirdest dude I have ever tried to figure out. He's a shrink's dream and maybe my worst nightmare. He's so gifted. He's so tall and so long. Yet he is so confoundingly complex, so predictably unpredictable. So what just happened to Kevin Durant, what we all just witnessed, I thought would happen a long time ago. Kevin Durant crumbled psychologically, and his thin skin became his fatal playoff flaw. And he is the thinnest skinned superstar I have ever closely observed. I've said that many times on Undisputed. So let me walk you back through my background with Kevin Durant. I started watching him his one and only year at the University of Texas. And understand, I hate the University of Texas. I'm an Oklahoma Sooner, born and raised, down to my soul. I don't like anything orange when it concerns the University of Texas. But I watched Kevin because I started to love Kevin even at the school I hated. Never seen anything quite like him. So tall, but so skilled. Such a mid-range jump shot. I'd never seen anything quite like it. I began to wonder, why would a kid from just outside Washington, D.C. decide to go play 1 year of basketball at Texas? It's not exactly a basketball powerhouse. Football, maybe, not basketball. It's had its moments, but not basketball. And I thought, this kid is so gifted, why not, I don't know, North Carolina or Kansas or Kentucky or wherever? I don't know, why not? Well, what I eventually learned about Kevin Durant is he's just going to be different. He's going to go against the grain. He's going to Austin, Texas to play for Texas. Maybe there was something else going on I don't know about, but it just seemed weird to me because Kevin can be a weird dude. So, my first year on Cold Pizza, 2004, I began to say that Kevin bleepin' Durant is going to win multiple NBA scoring titles. He was still at Texas. I just about got laughed off the set on Cold Pizza. My debate partner, Woody Page, moderator Jay Crawford, they just thought I was nuts until one fateful day, we had on the University of Kansas coach, you know all too well, named Bill Self, now a national championship again this year. This was 2004. And in an interview that Jay Crawford was doing, Bill Self volunteered on live TV on Cold Pizza, ESPN2, that, hey, Skip's right about Kevin Durant. You guys, you're just not getting it. This guy is something. This guy's going to dominate the NBA. And, of course, you know that Kevin wound up playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City is my hometown. And, of course, when Russell Westbrook started taking more shots per game than my guy, Kevin Durant. And, of course, I started to call Russell Westbrook out for it on national TV because I just couldn't take it. It just looked wrong to me. Now for the first huge plot twist that I encountered, one I did not see coming. Before a home game in Oklahoma City, Kevin Durant called over the beat reporter for the Oklahoman, the paper I grew up reading, And Kevin gave the beat reporter this quote, and I quote, "Skip Bayless doesn't know about basketball." Pardon my language. I was blindsided. I was dumbfounded. And the next morning on what had then become First Take, we had relocated, obviously, Cold Pizza from New York City up to Bristol, Connecticut to ESPN's mothership. On First Take the next morning, I was just sputtering. Kevin, you realize I'm your biggest fan. I'm your biggest supporter, your biggest defender. And you're disqualifying me by saying I don't know what I'm talking about? Kevin, you're biting the hand that has been feeding you. Or so I thought. Now, I understood that Kevin was defending his little brother, Russ. I got that. But Kevin also dared to tell the Oklahoman in the same article, we're actually better when Russ takes more shots. And I'm like, no, you're not. Sorry, Kevin, not buying it, and nobody else is buying it either. And of course, Kevin went on to win the MVP in 2014. And then the next year, it was time for the All-Star Weekend. And on that Friday, which is interview day for all the superstars, Kevin Durant was speaking to dozens of reporters who had voted for him for runaway MVP. And he told this big group of reporters completely seriously, you guys don't know about basketball. What? Kevin, they just voted you the MVP and they don't know what they're talking about? They're a bunch of basketball idiots? You're kidding. You're biting the hand that just fed you the MVP. It's just so wrong-headed. Okay, but that's Kevin bleeping Durant. So I'll throw in a quick nugget, personal note. When I did choose to leave ESPN to come here to Los Angeles to do Undisputed on FS1, Kevin told a mutual acquaintance of ours to tell me, congratulations. And I was like, okay, thank you. Tell him thank you. But that wasn't going to change how I thought about Kevin one way or the other. I still loved him and I appreciated that, but I'm thinking, well, maybe he's back on my bandwagon again. Maybe he likes me now, whatever. I continued to call him, as you probably know to a fault, the best player on the planet. It became almost a ritual on Undisputed during NBA season and playoffs. Kevin Durant is the best player on the planet. Not LeBron James, Kevin Durant. Obviously, Kevin is a much better shooter than LeBron ever dreamed of being. And obviously, Kevin has gone on to prove that on the biggest of stages. But let me just hark back quickly to one night this past basketball season, the regular season. It was the night of December 16th. Kevin Durant, without Kyrie, without James Harden, against the Philadelphia 76ers of Joel Embiid. Kevin outplayed Embiid, and the Nets beat the Sixers. This was in Brooklyn. And I went tweet crazy after that game. Best player on the planet. And Kevin Durant, believe it or not, went straight to his locker room and pulled out his phone. I assume saw my tweets. And he responded to me on Twitter, and I quote, I really don't like you. What? You really don't like me for what? For calling you the best player on the planet repeatedly? That's when it dawned on me. The supposedly supremely confident Kevin Durant did not like me heaping praise and pressure on him. I was actually complimenting him too much in his eyes. And I was threatening what now started to appear to me to be very thin-skinned and fragile confidence inside the supremely confident Kevin bleepin' Durant. I know that's deep, but I believe that was starting to operate. And when I hark back on, you don't know basketball, I think he was trying to undercut me to take some pressure off him. Yeah, we're better when Russ takes more. No, you're not. Does that mean you don't want to be the man in Oklahoma City? I don't know. Help me out here, Kevin. So this, of course, is the same Kevin Durant who has created burner accounts on Twitter, fake handles, so he can hide behind them to go back at people to defend himself. Well, why wouldn't you just defend yourself as you? Just own it. I have never, ever seen any superstar in any sport need a burner account to defend himself or herself. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine any other superstar from Michael Jordan on down needing to hide behind a burner account? Again, we're talking about Kevin Durant, the thinnest skinned superstar I have ever encountered or tried to figure out. And it began to dawn on me that he was actually extremely oversensitive and underconfident. So why did Kevin Durant, going into year 10 in the NBA, suddenly decide to leave Oklahoma City and leave Russ behind? Well, obviously it's because he decided he couldn't win a championship with Russell Westbrook as his primary decision maker at point guard. Well, Kevin, I tried to tell you so several years earlier, but no, you undercut me and you dismissed me because I guess you didn't want that pressure on you at that moment. Yet, what did I do on that fateful July 4th when Kevin decided to leave an Oklahoma City and a Russ with whom he had achieved a 3-1 lead in the playoffs over Golden State in the conference finals the year before? Why would he leave Oklahoma City to join forces with Steph and Clay and Draymond in Golden State? Interesting. I defended it. I just said, well, he wants to maximize his chances in year 10 of finally breaking through and winning a ring. And he was going to be the man in Golden State. And I still believe they viewed him as the missing piece to their puzzle because obviously they had just blown a 3-1 lead to LeBron and Kyrie and company. And they all but crawled all the way across the country on July the 3rd to recruit Kevin Durant, to beg him to come save them in Golden State. So I think he liked that position, but what he liked even better was high basketball IQ. I get to surround myself with Steph and Clay and Draymond. So the pressure can't be too great because they're going to have to bear some of the burden, some of the responsibility if this does not work. Obviously, much of the blame would be spread evenly around the Golden State franchise, so successful before Kevin even got there. So obviously, he was the best player on a much better team, and I let him off the hook for that, and I'll be the first to admit it. I've said this again and again. What I love the most about Kevin is that he is a deadly late-game clutch free throw shooter. I've never seen anyone better from the late game free throw line than Kevin Durant. See last summer's Olympics, see the gold medal game, see Damian Lillard stepping up, clanking 2 free throws late in the game to clinch. See Kevin Durant run to the other end when they got the basketball back and just wave for the basketball. He wanted it. He wanted to get fouled. He wanted to stride to the other end and stand at that line by himself from 15 feet away and go swish, swish, gold, gold. Thank you very much. Fly home safely. He did make that one great shot last year's playoffs, harped on it on Undisputed. Game 7 against the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks. It was at Brooklyn. Last second shot in regulation. Little toenail on the line. Boom. Clutch 3? No, it's a 2. I thought it was a 3. I fell out of my chair and rolled on the floor. He did it again. Well, he really hasn't done it much at all. And he didn't do that because he didn't get his toenail behind the line. And I guess that's part of being clutch. So it went down as a 2, and it went down to overtime. And you know and I know he hit the wall in overtime because he played the whole game for 4 straight games because there was no Kyrie and there was only a shell of what was left of James Harden, the same shell I'm seeing now in Philadelphia. Who knew? From the floor, eggshell confidence in the clutch. So here we go into what happened in this year's playoffs. But I will set you up for this by telling you, as a quick aside, that remember, Draymond Green has called 2 players during games. One was LeBron James during that finals, in which LeBron then, as Draymond got suspended for Game 5, LeBron and company roared back to historically defeat Golden State and Draymond. He got suspended because he called LeBron a and then tried to kick him in the lower region. Tried to kick several people in the lower region. But my point to you is, Draymond also got mad at Kevin Durant sitting on the bench in a game at Clippers and widely reportedly, called him a and it's the ultimate insult, male to male, as a sign of weakness. You're a again, excuse my language, but that's the language that is spoken. That's the language Draymond spoke to Kevin. And it was the beginning of the end of Kevin wanting to remain with the Warriors. But I ask you, do you think anybody's ever called Chris Paul a or I'll just throw out another name, Marcus Smart? Do you think ever a No, trust me, no. Nobody would even think that. We go back to the greats. Anybody ever call Michael Jordan a Larry Bird, Magic Johnson? No, 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 and no. But Kevin got lumped in with LeBron with the B word. So, speaking of Marcus Smart, here came he and his Celtics. Coached by a man, Ime Udoka, who sat on Kevin's bench with the Nets last year, who has helped coach Kevin in Olympics with Greg Popovich, who has sat next to Greg Popovich in many games in which they tried to figure out how to contend with Kevin Durant. Ime knows the score. Ime, once upon a time, played in this league as mostly a rugged defender. Ime very close with Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili in the dynastic Spurs that I knew and loved. Ime knows toughness and he knows weakness. And he knew KD would not like it if he sent his pack of Celtic dogs at him in waves and played football, basketball defense. As you know, the Celtics roughed up Kevin Durant, and he crumbled and he folded. He was overwhelmed, ultimately overmatched. Mr. Burner accounts just got burned. His thin skin gave away, and it showed a very little heart and little to no guts when push came to shove, literally, against that onslaught. The Celtics exposed Kevin Durant as, dare I say, soft, as intimidatable as Kevin Durant. Two weeks ago, thereof, Kevin made a remark to reporters that he no longer prioritizes winning, that his goal is just to improve every day his craft of playing basketball. It was a nice statement, a nice thought, but it really rubbed me the wrong way, because if you're that guy, all you care about is winning. All you would voice is, I prioritize winning. And it struck me that Kevin no longer wanted the pressure of having to win basketball games in the postseason, especially without Steph, without Clay, without Draymond. Even with Kyrie and some of James, he never wanted to be the man in Brooklyn. His very choice of going to Brooklyn was a follower choice, not a leader's choice. Kyrie led Kevin to Brooklyn. From what I read, what I was told, Kevin initially was more interested in going to the Mecca of basketball, going to Madison Square Garden and being a Knick. But Kyrie said, no, we got two Maxes over here. I grew up a Nets fan, Jersey. Let's go to Brooklyn. Kevin's like, okay, whatever you say. Kevin did not want the responsibility, the ownership of saying it was my choice for us to play for the Knicks. He willingly went along with Kyrie to the Nets. And you saw what ultimately happened or did not happen. Even the last game, the closeout game 4, Kevin finally went into all-out attack mode. And he missed 18 shots. It's a lot of shots to miss. Game 4 was actually an indictment of games 1, 2, and 3 when he was just completely overwhelmed by the onslaught. No great player, no alpha dog would be overwhelmed. The Jordans, the Birds, the Magic, just give me the damn ball and get out of the way. I don't care if two come after me. Two come after every great player, almost every possession. You just beat the double team. You go before they get there, you rise, you shoot. Your shot's unblockable. Yet you were getting it blocked by Jason Tatum because you were so tentative. You were so unsure of yourself. So in the end, forgive me for this, but I just overrated Kevin Durant. I overestimated him. That throne sits empty right now, that best player on the planet, because I can't go there anymore. I've said on Undisputed, I'm out. Sorry. He abdicated. I can no longer defend or protect. I think Giannis has a chance to rise up and sit atop that throne, best player on the planet. But first, let's see how Giannis fares against these same Celtics. Not sure about that. Will they build the same wall that Toronto was able to build a couple of years back? Yeah, they'll try. And if I know Ime and that pack of dogs he has, they will succeed. I think it's going to be very difficult for Giannis. So let's see how he fares. And let's see how I fare as I go forward without a best player on the planet at this moment. And I'll leave you with this thought. I've preached this on this show before. A lot of times, the commentator-player relationship, unfortunately, is about buying insurance, where if the player is nice to the media, if he's accessible, even accommodating in answering questions or interacting, he buys some insurance or she buys some insurance with the media. It's just how the game is played. We're all human. He's human, but so am I. And so, in the bitter end, as right before your very eyes, Kevin crumbled and folded, it wasn't that hard for me to give up on protecting him because he said, I don't know about basketball. And then he said, I don't like you. Well, at least I remained completely objective here. And it wasn't hard to abandon best player on the planet, Kevin Durant, because there's no love lost either way. I don't think many in the media care for Kevin because he's just a weird dude. And he seems to have no friendships in the media at all. No, I should say relationships in the media. It doesn't have to go over the edge, cross the line into friendship. And in the end, I will happily go about my business without heaping praise or pressure on Kevin Durant. I hope you enjoyed that video. You ready for more? Make sure you click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from the Skip Bayless Show. And don't forget to check out the full episode of the show wherever you get your podcasts by clicking the link in the description.